Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am annoyed with my clothing. And I know I know that sounds weird, but I was getting dressed this morning and I realized that I'm already sick to death of my clothes, and here's why. One, I'm trying to save money, so I'm trying not to buy more. And two, because of perimenopause, I'm hot all the time. So I'm wearing all of the
Oh,
t-shirts and the summer shirts all winter long. My sweaters are on the shelves collecting dust.
that's a bummer.
And so you know how you usually get that, like, okay, it's
Yeah.
spring, I get to change to these clothes I haven't worn in 6 months. I haven't had that, and I'm a little
Oh,
annoyed.
yeah, because when you said you're annoyed with your clothing, I thought, well, this is the time of year where you should be the opposite of annoyed because you're switching out and you're like, I remember this t-shirt. I
Yes.
love this
And
t-shirt.
that's what like hit me this morning is like, ugh, I can't even be excited about
Right.
it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I
I'm
was
sorry.
thinking that we need to go. I know you're a thrift store shopper, and I am not, but I think I need to join your club.
Okay.
So
Well, welcome to the club. It'll be fun. We'll get some wine and we'll go thrift store shopping. And it will be some therapy. Um, well, it's good to connect. I know that, hot off the presses right now, the kind of Democratic universe is all aflutter about Senator Slotkin's kind of coming out with what she's calling a new war plan to help Democrats defeat Republicans. There are a lot of pieces of this war plan, including this idea that we should own uh, patriotism and the flag, this idea that we should kind of stop using terminology like oligarchy and use more plain sort of language that resonates better. This idea that like wokeness is a sign of weakness, and we should move away from that. And some other pieces. And so I know I'm in like three different, like fairly heated conversations and text and in Facebook and in other spaces about this very kind of topic and this kind of war plan that the senator is coming out with. And I'm wondering how you're experiencing all of that.
So I think like the best way for me to describe my reaction to it, and first I want to caveat this with I looked high and low for an actual recording of what she said or a
Yeah.
transcript so that I could read it or watch it and know exactly what she said rather than judging it based on articles that were written about it. And I
Mm,
could only find the articles, and I read several different
same.
ones, and every single one you like presented it in a different
A
way.
different spin. Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
So I will caveat this with if and when I get to see the transcript or the actual speech, it could change exactly how I feel about this. But my overall kind of feeling of this is that meme or TikTok that I've seen. I send it to my daughter all the time. She loves it. And it's where it's like, my mom was right about everything. I just didn't like her tone. So that's kind of how I feel about this.
Yeah, so are you saying that Senator Slotkin is right about everything she's kind of saying, but the kind of tone or maybe the way it's coming across is not quite right?
Yeah, there's merit in all
Yeah,
of the different things she's saying, and I will also say most, maybe all of what she is saying has already been said by you, me,
yeah,
Pod Save America, Tim Miller, other pundits. Like, this is
so
not
true.
new stuff. This is
So
not
true.
new stuff. And why exactly Slotkin has, I guess, I don't know, like, does she have a platform that we didn't realize that's going to create more of a talking around this? Because, like, when Jon Favreau and John Lovett and all the guys were saying it, like, why weren't they talking? No one was talking
Yeah.
about it then.
Well, and Senator Slotkin is a freshman senator who won a federal Senate race in a swing state that went for Trump. She's a
Mm-hmm.
Democratic freshman senator who won. So I mean, she has some legitimacy as far
Yeah.
as like what strategies that she used here in Michigan to build the coalition that she needed that included, and I remember hearing her say these words, that will include Trump voters who also voted for her. And so I think, you know, overarchingly, like if she's coming from that perspective, then maybe she gets some kind of platform. Although, I think that the Democratic Party is looking for leadership, and nobody right now is like officially anointed to be the person who creates the war plan,
Yeah.
for whatever that is. And we see, Senator Slotkin doing this. We see Representative Ocasio-Cortez, and with Senator Sanders kind of doing another kind of version of this. I am taking the tack of like, I'm just grateful anyone's stepping like out of the like fray and putting something forward in a powerful way. And I think that, tone aside, like, I'm just glad that this is starting a conversation, or is like igniting a conversation that's been like kind of smoldering for a while, because Democrats really do need to talk about this. And what's interesting about Senator Slotkin's, like, this news, stories that are breaking today, is that there was a lot of chatter about it in all the like typical Democratic spaces, the groups that you and I are in,
Mhm.
the Facebook groups, the whatever, the folks of us who are just obsessed about this constantly all the time. But I also got an email from one of my best friends who is not in that space, right?
Yeah.
And she doesn't live in Michigan. She lives in Florida. And she, not an email, a text. She sent me a text this morning, and she said, "What's up with this senator of yours? Is she a good egg? Like, I'm hearing some things." And so
Yeah.
there's something there about like breaking through, to kind of get a message out.
Yeah. No, I think part of what well, and like I said before, like we just don't actually know how she said what she said. So one
Yeah.
reporting kind of indicated that she said that that the Democratic Party has the perception of being weak and woke, which is true. And we can argue till the cows come home about why we have that perception.
Yeah.
It's because of Fox Media. Um,
There's really no argument. There's
I
very
know, I know.
clear.
I'm sure we could have that argument of like, you have to own who you are. That's
Yeah.
not who we are. Just because we feel that people, we should be careful about the language you use and be inclusive and whatever. I don't go around correcting people. So whatever. Like,
Yeah.
the whole idea of like, I don't know. I forget who had that quote of like, when I think of a liberal, it's like blue hairs with nose rings in their nose and serving coffee at Starbucks. Just because you have that idea of a liberal doesn't mean that is an accurate idea of a liberal.
For
But
real.
yeah, and like so there's kind of that, but I think what she did probably say was that we have that perception and we have to change that perception, and I totally agree with that. And then like on the oligarchy point, I agreed. I thought that a long time ago that like, let's not use the word oligarchy. Let's talk about tax the rich. Let's talk about the
Absolutely.
rich paying their fair share. Let's talk about billionaires. Those are words that you can use that are more down to earth. But here's my but on this. And I'm reading into what she has to say, but I got to tell you a little bit of back piece. So some reporter somewhere asked her, when are you going to start being like AOC and getting out there and getting loud and saying something? And she had some snarky comment about AOC that like, I'm not AOC and I'm pragmatic. I'm not going to be like her. And like, what has she even gotten done? Which the best answer, and I realize we're all human, we make mistakes. But she should have said, AOC and I are different people. We both serve different purposes in the party. There's different things that we do. I'm more pragmatic, blah, 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 whatever. Play up your strengths without cutting down a counterpart that's in your party.
Yeah.
And so like with the oligarchy piece, Bernie and AOC are going around the country on the oligarchy tour. And when they first announced that, on the one hand, I was like, this is so fantastic. I am so excited they are doing this. This is 100% a positive, but I wasn't thrilled with the name.
Yeah.
But I was like, the name doesn't matter that much if it's just a word. Yes, there's better words, but if they're over here doing the oligarchy tour and you want to talk about doing something else, it just feels a little bit like she's trying to undercut progressive Democrats, and that'll get under my skin real fast.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I also think like, well, Dems can talk to the cows come home about words and what they mean, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Which is the whole
it,
wokeness thing, remember?
yes,
Remember,
I
Alyssa,
know,
we're
I
not supposed to
know.
be woke and worry about which words we say.
Exactly. And they like, but you also have to figure out when words matter. And I
Yeah,
don't know, like I'm on the anti-oligarchy boat
me too.
too. I just think like if we're trying to be more relatable and less elitist,
Hmm.
then picking words that most people don't know what they are, or what they mean, then is not going to get us there for
Yeah,
sure.
totally agree.
Yeah, although I will admit that I recently called using the word oligarchy pedantic, and then I realized that the word pedantic is pedantic, and so that I was in my like overeducated,
Yes,
like stupid head about it.
yes,
So
yes.
anyhow, I know, but speaking of words, and you mentioned this about like the perception of wokeness, right? And this versus like actual wokeness, which is just a totally made up thing anyway in the last 5 or 10 years or whatever.
Hmm.
But like, I I think that the way I interpret what Senator Slotkin is saying is the way that the Republicans and especially MAGA have defined wokeness for us is weak,
Hmm.
right? And um and Republicans are very good at at communication and about like really kind of like taking a thing that's not a problem and making it a problem, creating fear for the sake of political
Yeah,
power. That's what they do. And
yeah.
so like when they say wokeness, they're talking about like pearl clutching or like super woke police kinds of things going on, versus like what we mean by wokeness, which really is just like we're awake to the reality of the world and some true inequalities that have existed since the beginning of time. And we are going to do our part to be good allies if we happen to hold privileges, where we hold privileges. Because we're aware of those inequalities, right?
Hmm.
Like that's really we're awake to that.
Yeah.
Um, we're not the like pronoun police, right? Like that's
Well,
not what we're trying to be.
and I think that of course there are pronoun polices out there. We know that there are word police out there,
Oh, for sure.
for
Yeah.
sure, mostly in social media spaces, or maybe somebody like at your job or whatever. Like they exist, but they are a minority.
That's
They are
right.
not the majority of people. And I see this like with like words used for trans people. Like for example, I gave a speech once, and it was about reproductive rights, and I had said something to the effect of like, cis women and trans men and non-binary and whatever, like all of the reproductive rights affect all of these people. And I had a young person come up to me and hug me crying, thanking me for just including them as a non-binary person who could
Yeah.
get pregnant. So like that is fine, but you're not going to see me going around and saying, oh, but you shouldn't say women. That's not what we're doing. And we
Yeah.
interchange those. Sometimes I say women, sometimes I say people who can get pregnant. Like I interchange those. But on the other side of that, if you say people who can get pregnant, then you'll have people on the right being like, oh, you can't say that. It's women. Only women can get pregnant. So who's policing words now?
I know. And or even just like if you're, do a renovation for an office and then you establish a bathroom that is like, allows for all genders and you put a sign up, then suddenly like you're this wild woke person,
Yeah.
for making that call. But I think like no matter what, like what's happening, and I'm sure that Democrats do it too, although I don't know, I feel justified, but like that what's happening is like the minority extreme of the party is being held up by the Republicans as like the norm, right?
Yes.
And we know from all of the things the places that we've been and the pools we swim in, like that is not true. That is not
Yeah.
true. That is the true minority. And the caricature of wokeness that is being drafted by the Republicans is weak, and it's weak intentionally, right?
Mhm.
So like Senator Slotkin saying we got to stop this woke weakness or whatever it was that she actually said. I totally get that if we're talking about like not what we are and what we believe we are in terms of being woke, or seeing or waking up. And if we're talking about like the caricature, right, the
Mhm.
extreme of that, totally, like I'm totally behind that. But that is the phrase of what Senator Slotkin said that seems to be getting the most like agita on the
Mhm.
left right now.
And I just have a lot of concern. And this is something I've been concerned about since the election was, and I didn't know the answer at first, and maybe I still don't know the answer. I think I know the answer, but hey, you know what? We all get ideas and we change our minds from new information. But after the election, I was like, people are going to think we have to move further to the right in order to be a viable party. And some of the way this is being delivered, and whether Slotkin has intended this or whether it's just reported that way, leaving that aside, it feels very much like that whole we need to move to the center, we need to be more moderate, we need to be more whatever. And I have argued this, that Trump's not moderate. People didn't vote for Trump because he was some moderate. The people in the center that voted for him, that essentially, that's why we lost the election, because the right's going to vote for the right and the left's going to vote for the left, and turnout's going to matter, but it's those people in the middle that we're often vying for. They voted for him because they felt like he was going to make a radical change. Now, they thought it was going to be a radical change for the better. Joke's on all of us, because clearly it's not.
Yeah.
But that's what I really think it is that people are looking for something to hold on to, some shred of hope, change. It's why they voted for Obama. It's why they voted for Trump the first time. They voted for Biden because of everything was so bad from the pandemic. He was their hope and change. Like, that's what people want. It's that vibe, it's that feeling. And so I think if we promote democratic policies like a fair wage and healthcare and
Yeah.
Social Security and Medicare,
Yeah.
Medicaid, like childcare, like all the things that we really truly want to work on that are for average people, and no matter how radical they call it, I think that there are so many people that are going to respond to that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think that was kind of what I was posting about this morning, right? There's this like Trump effort to like offer some like $5,000 monetary incentive to increase the birth rate or some like dystopian wildness like that. And the fact is, like, that is a ridiculous idea. But if you cared about like people wanting to have more children, look at all these other social like security net things that we could
Yeah.
either do or enhance, from childcare to universal health care to all of the things that make parenting so hard, because it's not there. Focus on those, and if you're really worried about the birth rate, then that's the way to do it, not
Yeah.
throw $5,000 checks at people. Um,
A
for
one-time
sure.
check is not going to solve my problem. Not that
No,
I'm even looking at having more
no.
children. I have 5. We're all good. But
Yeah,
like for a new family, like that $5,000, if you're already thinking about having kids, it might be like, oh, cool. Maybe this isn't such a
yeah,
bad time. But if you are thinking 5,000, I mean, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise a child from 0 to 18. Like, that's not going to what's
no,
$5,000 going to do?
no. I did the math, right? It wasn't hard. It's $23 a month for the first 18 years of that child's life, right?
Yeah.
And it's more than $1,000 is the average cost a month for daycare. So
Mm-hmm.
like that is not, it's not a hard calculation to figure out. But uh, all that to just say, like, you know, in terms of like a war plan and how we kind of approach things, like I think that you're super right. Like it's about figuring out why people are so hungry for change, why they voted for just the person who represented the most change, and who actually represented chaos, and people are actually not searching for change. They're searching for stability. They're searching
Yeah.
for comfort. And if they're not feeling comfort now, they'll try to go through whatever change process that they can
Yeah.
to get to that stability and comfort. And we have plans to provide stability and comfort. It's just like we're not able to like get our message to cut through. And that's why I think this like Woken Week, like this conversation about it is so important right now.
hmm Yeah, I think the conversation is super important. I'm really glad that Slotkin is bringing it up, using her platform in whatever way, because, like I said, other people have talked about it and it hasn't really gotten traction. So good, let's have that conversation. Let's not undercut the Democratic Party, Democratic representatives, that sort of thing. Let's not undercut people while we're doing it. But once again, maybe she didn't, and that's just the way the media is presenting it, because we know they do that. Whether we're talking Fox News or other outlets, they're going to snippet the parts that are going to get them the attention, and Woken Week is going to get them the attention, whether she said it that way or not. But I just really have concerns about, our progressive platform is a strong platform, but we don't get it out there enough. And the way the media works is against us. And I don't mean that, yes, Fox News is against us, but I don't even mean that like the regular media is against us per se. I just mean that they treat us like a main character. They treat the Republicans like the villain, which is kind of understandable, but the main character, Katniss Everdeen or whomever, always has to be perfect. They can't make mistakes.
That's right.
And the villain is a villain, and they're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah. That's so true.
We're treated differently in the press, and it's always going to be that snippet of what's going to get people to click. And sometimes that is a tiny little clip of Kamala Harris talking about surgeries for transgender people in prison, that I think there was like 2 that actually happened. 2. And they put billions of dollars into that, and people are like, Democrats are only talking about trans people, but they're not.
We're not talking about trans people at all. I looked it up. It was the Republicans spent $215 million on anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ TV ads in the last election cycle. So they're the ones that are talking about that. We're not playing an offensive role in that process. We're not going out there saying, trans issues are our number one issue, or LGBTQ our number one issue. We're responding to those things. And the insidiousness of it all is we have to, because what they're doing is they're attacking marginalized communities, and we have to fight back against that, and they know it. So then we amplify that message, we amplify that topic in our kind of social conversation, because we have to be, I sit around at night thinking about trans young people hearing those messages, and what does that mean? And I feel like I have to make sure that they know, those in our community know, that I'm here for them, right? So I have to respond from that perspective, because they're vulnerable, marginalized, individuals who need to know that the rest of the world doesn't think that way.
And there is a way to stand up for people's rights, human rights, what is right, without it only being about that. I mean, AOC has been fantastic about taking issues and, starting out with, here's this attack, here's my response, and then moving on to how that affects everybody else. Sarah McBride, who is a trans representative in Congress, she'll talk about trans issues when asked, but for the most part, she's out there taking, if she gets attacked, I listened to something on her the other day. She's like, if people attack me, I just blow by it. I'm here to be for my constituents and work as a representative. I don't care what people say about me. They attack my trans constituents. That's a whole nother issue. But there are ways to talk about these issues, move on to other things, frame them in ways that can relate to everybody else regarding their freedoms, their, whatever. Like, there are ways to do it. We do not have to abandon the marginalized people in this country in search of power.
Yeah, that's right. And we have to figure out that balance, right? Because you did hear, and I'm hearing it today, but especially right after the last election, like, that Democrats have to stop talking about these things. And it's like literally the Republicans that are bringing that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Mhm.
in 2023 or 2024, 2023 probably, they took a look at Michigan and kind of the high school athletics across the state, and there are only 2 trans female student athletes in the whole state of Michigan. And
Mhm.
yet, during the election, campaign season, we were getting inundated. Like this was the number one problem in the
Mhm.
world right now.
Yeah.
They're owning that message. They're amplifying the message,
Mhm.
and it's not us that's doing that.
So yeah,
So
we definitely have to find a way to get our message out there, paint them in a certain way. We don't have the same ability that they paint us, and we don't always have the ability to
that's
paint
right.
them. So, and then I don't know what the answer is to all of that. That's why we started a podcast and a TikTok and everything else, so we could try to get messages out more.
Totally.
But definitely the things that Slotkin are talking about are really important, and we do have messaging we need to change. I do think we need to be talking to, and I've had multiple conversations with people, mostly union members, as a matter of fact, talking about how we can reach them and the language that we use and the way that we're talking,
Yeah,
just in order to bring people in as opposed to make them feel like this is not my group.
that's right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, all right. Well, I think we're coming up on our time now. Do you have a final question for us?
I didn't think about it again today. Did you?
I always have questions. My like day job. I am full of that kind of thing. Jennifer, I've never asked you this question before. I'd love you to tell me about your name. Tell me about your name. Like whatever you want to tell me, where it came from, how you feel about it, any nicknames you had and how you felt about those. Yeah, tell me about your name.
So it's kind of an interesting-ish story. So when my mom was little, my grandma used to call her Jennifer Jones whenever she was in a good mood. And that
Okay.
wasn't always. So it meant a lot to my mom to be called Jennifer Jones because it meant mom was in a good mood and whatever. So that was like a pleasant memory for her. So she always knew she was going to name her daughter Jennifer. And hence I'm Jennifer. But at the same time that I was born in the 70s, Jennifer was the most popular name. And she was so mad at everybody else for stealing her name because she knew forever that she was going to have a daughter named Jennifer. But yeah, I was called Jenny growing up. Still, my family will occasionally call me Jenny, but at some point in time, I was just like, I don't feel like a Jenny anymore. I'm Jennifer now.
But you're not a Jen.
Some people call me Jen, and I don't correct them, but
Okay.
that's not like something I choose.
Okay. Okay.
What about
Okay.
you?
So, I think my mom told me this, although I haven't, didn't really verify it. So this is the story that I held about my name that could be wrong, but I think it's right. And my mom passed away, so I can't ask her. But I believe that my mom had a cat named Sarah Jane. And she just like really liked this cat. And so I was her firstborn. My mom was like 22 when I was born. I was her oldest, and she named me after the cat. So there you go. Sarah. Sarah. I don't have Jane as the middle name. Anne is my middle name. Anne is a family name with my grandmother and my mom. But I always wished that I had a name like yours that could be other like derivatives,
Oh,
right? I
yeah.
always yearned for that because Sarah does not have an easy
Yes.
nickname. There's no short version of Sarah. And so when I had kids, I have an Eleanor and a Daniel, and I made sure that we picked names that had lots of potential variations,
Hmm.
so that as they matured, they could decide, right,
Yeah.
what they wanted their name to be within that. Of course, they could always change their name outright too, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was my feeling growing up, is I always just yearned for a name that was just something more than, Sarah, something more than what it,
Yeah.
was, and nothing else. So yeah. Yeah.
Understandable.
All right, well, I'm sure we'll be in 17 other conversations about Senator Slotkin and what she's thinking, but it's good to ground our conversation here today, and I hope you have a really good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you
All
later.
right, thanks. Bye-bye.